Hello everybody, welcome to another Woodworking Wisdom. Today we've got a little project. We are doing a scroll saw project. We're cutting a Father's Day sign. We've got Father's Day coming up on the weekend. We're just going to do a little kind of shed sign. And again, you can change this however you like. The template for this is online, so it's just below in the links. It's labeled template, and you can print this off and have a go at the project. So let's get straight into it, I think. I've got my template on the bench here. So that's what we're going to cut out. Okay. And that's the one that's on a PDF, just in the links there. So first job, I'm just going to get rid of some of this excess paper. We'll cut this out. You don't have to be too intricate with it. We're going to cut it out on the scroll saw anyway, so we'll get all our detail there. We just really want that template and not all of this excess paper, because that would just use up more glue. So you could transfer this using something like carbon paper. You could trace it on. We're going to cheat a little bit. We're going to use a bit of this Copydex glue and just stick it straight down. So we're sticking the template straight onto our piece of timber. I'm going to use my little kind of drill pad and just spread a thin layer of this glue. This is like a silicone glue or rubberized glue. So it all peels off really nice at the end and it doesn't sink into the timber. Of course, if you were to use a PVA or something like that, that's designed to soak into the wood, whereas this one will just stay on a layer on the back of our piece of paper. But like I say, lots of different ways of putting this template on. And this doesn't have to be a scroll saw thing. You could transfer it on and do a bit of pyrography, so burn it into the piece of timber. So we're just going to pop that off to one side, because then, you know, we might be able to make something else out of that. So not put it straight in the middle. There we go. So template's down. Just going to pop the lid back on the glue. We don't want that drying up. And on here, we've got all of these kind of little internal areas that we need to thread the blade through that in a bit. So we're going to drill those out. And yeah, so really small 2mm drill bit for these really small little apertures. There's a few here we need to drill through. Just pop my goggles on. So I'm just going for the smaller ones really. This glue, sometimes it will catch on the drill bit and kind of wrap round. If you're finding that's bothering you, just puncture through that glue layer with like a bradawl or something like that. Even a drawing pin or a nail, just enough to pierce through that glue layer. So trying to keep the drill nice and upright at our kind of 90 degrees. I think we'll get away with a bigger drill bit for the rest of these. So these bigger ones, we can just use any old drill bit. Just make sure I'm on my little kind of drill pad. And it doesn't really kind of matter where you're dropping those holes in, as long as they go right the way through. So we've got a few to do here. Each one of these drill holes are going to represent where we're going to put the blade of the scroll saw through. Just following around. Some of these are kind of open to the rest of the outside of the project, so we don't need to drill them all. quick whiz around with the drill. I've got one here. That big one in the center. So just like always, Steph's on the questions and cameras. Any questions you may have as we go along, just pop them in the chat and we'll do our best to answer. So I think I've got all of these. We can always come back and revisit if we've missed one. Quite often I'll sit down at the scroll saw and think, oh, missed one there. So we can come back to that in a minute. Also, just check the bottom of the board. Make sure there's not any kind of really big bits of breakout. We don't want that rocking on the kind of bed of the scroll saw. So just picking off or push in any kind of loose fibers, and then that's going to sit nicely on the saw. Okay, so over onto the saw here. I've got my modified geometry number 5 blade ready to go. It's a big favorite of mine, and we're hooked up to the auto start on the extractor. And I think we'll cut all these bits out before we cut the kind of outline. So we've got, we've got a bit more material to hold on to. Some of these bits potentially are a little bit vulnerable. So if you're moving the workpiece around, you could interfere with those a bit. So let's start cutting all of these little internals. Nice and easy on this saw because we've got that arm that lifts. A quick way of tensioning the blade, and I usually just put on a little bit more on the back of the machine, just at the back of the arm there. Okay, so away we go. So, brand new modified geometry number 5. Just gonna press the button on the extractor there to stop that auto clean on the filter. It makes a bit of a thumping noise. And we're just going to go around these little shapes. Nice and gentle with the feed when you're doing smaller items like this. And let the blade do its work. Sometimes when it comes to a little bit like that, it will ping off the shoulder. So just going nice and slow, allowing all those teeth to do their thing and cut that nice and clean. Now if you're into kind of pierce work, which I guess this is in a way, a saw like this with that lifting arm is going to be a real godsend. So where we've got this really kind of tight V shape, I'm going to reverse back up that cut and come in to meet that. So we've got 2 cuts intersecting to give us that really kind of defined area. I don't know if you saw that then, but the blade just pinged out that bit of waste. Now, I can rest that on the back of the blade there. It's not going to do any cutting, so I'm resting against the kind of belly of that A there, rotating the workpiece, and it's not cut or kind of ruin the finish in any way. Resting on the side of the blade there to restart our cut. Again, we've got that tight little kind of V shape, so I'm backing out, and I'll come up on this line and rejoin it there. So that one doesn't want to ping out, which is fine. We can just lift our project up and either take it from behind or push it through, and you can remove that piece. Good stuff. So a little bit more tension on the back of the machine there. And we'll go straight down into that little groove. And that little kind of tip is just falling down into the extraction plate. So we may find that it kind of catches on the project in a minute, but I usually just go ahead. Sometimes they fall straight through. And it's a nice gentle pressure down onto the table. So we're holding the workpiece down, stopping it from lifting. So a little bit of a zigzag here. Oops. So just backing up our line here, we've got to kind of go out the way we came in. Let's come up here. We take there, and then we're back on our zigzag. So really slow feed forward. And you can see how far the workpiece has to travel. You know, take your time with this. I'm kind of rushing through a little bit. So take your time and get those lines just so. We're going to back up that cut. Hello, we've got a little joining cut there, so let's just join those two cuts together. And I'll give it a little wiggle down in that corner to kind of tighten it up, give it a little bit more definition. Again, that piece didn't want to kind of ping out, so we need to just remove that one. Good. So although we haven't got that real sharp definition on each of these teeth, it is very clearly a kind of teeth shape. So we're just carrying on with these cuts. Again, rotating on the back of the blade there. So they make a little cut into here to come up to my diagonal there. Rotate on the back of the blade to pick up on that cut. Good. So I'm not sure if you can see it on camera, but we've got lots of little kind of chips and bits in our extraction plate. I usually keep a pair of kind of long nose jeweler's pliers. Sometimes these can be a real pain to get to, but you can just lift them out. Just be careful with the blade though, we don't want to snap that one. So all these little chips can start to build up in there, so I tend to just get rid of those as we go. Don't let them build up until the point where they're becoming a nuisance and kind of interfering with how the project moves on the table. Cool, so we're just going to keep cutting these little internal shapes out.
Then we have a question here.
Oh, good stuff.
From Cliff. He's asked, in the larger cutouts, is it better to cut out in one piece or to split it into smaller portions?
What, for like the cutting out the outline, or?
I think he means for cutting out the internal bits, like if it's a large bit, so like the middle bit of your dad's shed.
Yeah, so it kind of depends. If I'm coming into like a really tight V, or you know, coming into a really kind of tight corner, I tend to kind of take one cut up into the corner and then back out and then bring the other cut in. So I tend to kind of break it up into littler pieces. But that will just slightly affect the kind of finish. But I usually go in with a couple of files or something and tidy those up. Sometimes when you bring one cut and you've got another cut coming up to it, you can overshoot it. So again, just really gentle with that feed. But I tend to cut it into little smaller pieces and find that it's a little bit more accurate that way. All right.
We've got another question from
Cheers,
Derek.
Cliff.
Sorry.
Hi, Derek.
What size blade are you using, please?
So this is the modified geometry number 5, and number 5 is usually quite a thicker blade, but these modified geometry ones, the way the teeth is set on them, there's no what they call a kerf, so there's no blades, no teeth kind of crisscrossing, so there's very little waste. The actual tooth itself is shaped inwards, which allows you to do those turns and stuff, but you can keep the blade really, really thin. So modified geometry number 5 is my favorite blade. And the only time I use anything else really is if we're doing kind of thin material puzzle pieces, or we want really kind of really fine lines. Say you're cutting into like a feather or something like that. You can drop down to, I keep with these modified geometry ones, but drop down to a 3 or a 1, depending on what you're doing. Thanks for your questions, folks. So again, just reverse up that cut a little. Got that little chip just falling down through, rotating on the back of the blade. So I'm putting pressure this way, and kind of resting on that smooth back of the blade. So just forming a little shoulder before I start the cut. And following this straight down. My little blower is doing an excellent job of clearing any dust that kind of gets deposited on top. Sometimes you get lucky and it will kind of ping the chip out. Otherwise, just lift that out of the way. Okay. So really nice to be able to quickly set the tension using that little cam lever. We've gone from a quick kind of swipe to a gentle kind of turning of the project, and just using that end of that cut to marry up with what's already there and kind of blend it in a little bit. So you can work quite fast once you get going. Sometimes it's a little difficult to kind of locate those holes when looking from the underneath of the project. And I've drilled my hole just slightly outside of our template. So I'm going to try and cut that little bit out so we haven't got a like a little semicircle where the drill's been. Resting on the kind of side of the blade there. Just pick up, click on the outside of that line and drill that cut in. Now I've got, where we've not quite got that drill bit, we've got a bit of a wiggly line, so I'm just kind of dressing that really gently with the side of the blade. So just engaging, just removing a tiny bit of material. And that should have blended it all in. Sometimes it's hard to see from the top. So that little chip of wood's just kind of pinched on the blade. So you can see where it's kind of wedged in. And let's find our next bit here. Good to go. So really nice to have that auto start on the extractor. I don't have to keep kind of bending down to turn it off and on again. Really useful little feature that. And again, I just want to bring this in and kind of blend it as we go. And it's really important that your saw blade's up at 90 degrees for these kind of pierced projects. So again, we've got that sharp point, so cutting right down into that corner and then bringing the other cut up to kind of meet. So I'm stuck on a little pin there. Might think it just pinged out. But I can feel under there that there's something stuck in that extraction plate that's stopping me from being able to move the project around so easy. And there it is. It's just catching on the bottom of the project. So every now and then, worth just removing those. Because what that will do, if you're in the middle of a cut and it suddenly catches, it could throw you into the bit that you want to keep. So you're cutting outside of your waist area. So I'm going to bring a little cut in here to marry with that one. Bringing the project around, resting on the back. And then just trim that one in. Good. So just gently coming up to that line, and then I'm going to stop there, reverse back out, turn the project, and then again reverse up that line, and then we can cut down this one. Again, just reverse a little bit this time, leave a little corner down there, and then get onto this line. we can follow that one around. And this timber is a piece of tulip or poplar. Oh. So these bigger chips don't usually like to ping out. Remember, we've just got that little corner just to nip in. So this time resting on the side, so I've got a little bit of pressure going that way, resting on the side of the blade, and just advancing the project until those teeth start to cut. You hear them cutting, and then you get a really nice kind of smooth finish. So if I can just show that to camera quickly. Where is it? So down in this bottom corner, it's not quite focusing, but we've got a really nice, we had a little nib in here, and we've just kind of come along to meet that corner. We've got a really nice smooth finish in that corner now, really nice definition. Okay, so another question.
Yeah, we've got a question here from Ward Wilson asking, what are your feelings regarding spiral blades?
Hi, Ward. I'm not a big fan of spiral blades. They are really useful for certain projects. So a spiral blade's got teeth all the way around the blade, and so it'll cut in any direction. You don't actually have to twist or manipulate the workpiece. You can just hold it flat and go any direction you want, and that's going to cut the shape that you want. Usually leaves a bit of a rough finish, so there's usually a bit of cleanup, and you get a fair bit of breakout. So the underside of the project usually has a little bit of kind of torn, fluffy fibers. Again, it's not a massive problem. You can sand them off quite quickly. I just really like the finish that you get off of these blades. They work really well. Okay, so another question.
Yeah, we've got another question from Malcolm Douglas here. He said, is there a rule for blade or table angle to wood thickness to exactly inset one wood into another?
They are. I can't remember. You'll have to look that up. There's probably a chart or something online. But the thickness of the timber is what's important in relation to the tilt. I can't remember off the top of my head, but obviously the thinner it goes, the more tilt you need for it to kind of wedge in. And then the thicker, if you've got thicker pieces of timber, you need less angle because there's more body to kind of push up through or inset into the project. But yeah, I don't know that off the top of my head, but there's definitely going to be a chart online that you could have a look at. That should give you all that information. Just pop it into Google, and then you should get a couple of different versions of that. All right. Thanks, Steph. So each of these little cuts I'm passing right into the corner and then just coming forward, and that's giving us that little triangle. Got another one to do just here. I don't think I've come right the way through with that drilling. So just a quick little drill back on the bench. Oops. So it's this one here, hasn't gone right the way through. So just revisit that. There we go. Good. So back onto the scroll saw. So I've already cut one of these. We're rocking somewhere. That's really important that we just sort that out before we get going. So it had a little chip underneath that, and then found the culprit. So again, just kind of creep into those corners, resting on the back of the blade whilst we're swinging the project around. Going to reverse into that cut we just made. And again, our little drill hole is just prepped into the kind of final project. So I'm just making this aperture a little bit bigger. And that way we can kind of skim out any kind of annoying bits like that. We'll tidy up this space here. So some of these are really tiny little bits. Some of them we've got a bit bigger, a bit more material to kind of play with. And a project like this is really good practice where you have to do lots of kind of, you know, taking the blade in and out or reclamping it. These kind of repetitive holes, these little apertures that we're cutting, these are really good practice pieces because it's just making you use lots of little functions on the saw lots of times. And all of this stuff, like I said before, it's repetition. And sometimes when you sit down, it takes a little while to get back into the kind of flow of it. Sometimes if I've not done anything for a couple of weeks on the scroll saw, it'll take me sort of 5 minutes to get settled back in. So I'm going to back up this one. There we go. So again, we've got a little pin or something stopping us from moving, that little bit there. Let's put this back through. When starting the saw, when the project's kind of engaged with it, make sure you've got a firm grip down onto the table so it's not going to suddenly lift. Because the scroll saw is a really nice, safe machine to use. And I think sometimes people get a little bit worried about using it because the blades grab the project and it kind of lifts it up and throws it back down on the table. But it is a really nice, safe machine to use. So I'm backtracking to our little drill hole, spin the project round, reverse up our cut, and then we can start again from here and bring in the other side. And what I'm going to do is sweep down here to pick up on that cut. Again, resting on the side of the blade here, and just trimming up here. We can back out. I'll take that other line while we're there, and then just back up a little. We're going to cut from one side to the other. Little chips just dancing around on top there. Just being careful not to cut into the project. And see if we can come down here and straight across. Just has enough room for the blade to squeeze through that gap. And just trim that while I'm there. Good. So, another couple of these little tiny ones. I like to do the kind of more fiddly ones first. And then you've got a nice clear run at the end of the project. There we are. And then any more little fiddly ones, just get them done. Again, take your time with this. I'm rushing a little bit to get it done all in time for our live. And if you find when you're lifting the project the chip is pinching on the blade, don't really pull. You know, these blades are so thin, they are quite easy to snap. And they'll almost be a consumable when you first get going with scroll sawing. So I'll come right to the back there. I'm going to pick up on this kind of curve and we'll revisit to get that little nib at the end. Always slow down that last little bit. We don't want to overshoot and come into our project. Make sure I've got hold of that properly. Let's make sure that's good. So just manipulating it around so we can get into that void where we can then come out and pick that last little bit out. I usually have a little peek under the project as we're going. Make sure there's no debris under there. So we've got 3 more to cut, and then we can start having a look at this outside shape. I can just feel the blade wandering a little bit, so I'm just ramping up the tension on the back of the arm there. Oh, come back, get that a bit better. So moving this project around on the table is all about switching a pivot point. So sometimes I'll use a finger down on the table, sometimes I'll push the corner of the board with my thumb. But you try to get used to the kind of subtle pressures you need to put on and changing direction and things like that. So just cutting the inside shape around this hammer. So my blade just popped out of that cut there, found it took the path of least resistance and just popped out of the cut. Good. So just having a little look over, make sure we've not missed any drill bits. I think we're good here. We've got this big one in the centre, and this has got lots of those little corners, so we can have lots of practice on this one. So a momentary break from the extractor. Let's just reverse a little bit actually and pick up on this line. So I'm reminding myself I've got a little pip in that corner that needs to come out. We've got almost a right angle here, so it's a quick round of the project and then back out because we've got that really tight V. Again, take the cut right up into that corner, reverse it out, and then picking up on the bottom line. So I'm just retreating out of that corner a little. So repeat that. Pick up on our next one. And we can take this big centerpiece out and come back and trim up any little nubbins that we left. So just blending that in. Good. Let's get rid of this so we've got a bit more room to move around. And we'll come back in and trim up all these little pipe spots. Again, just rest on the side of the blade and swing the project around so you can hear those teeth engage. I've got lots of little chips down in my extraction plate. They're starting to be a bit of a bother. Good. Okay. I think that's it now for the kind of internal shapes. I want to pop a couple of drill holes in this so we can hang a sign or put a screw through it. So we've got another question.
We've got 3 actually.
Oh, good stuff.
First one from Woodworking. Hi Ben, love the scroll saw stuff, but is Craig still around, and if so, will he be showing more bandsaw projects?
So Craig's still with us. Craig's moved just to a different department. He's in product design now. But we are doing lots of videos on the setups of these machines. So there's going to be, setups for new products on bandsaws, planer thicknessers, all of this machine that we do. We're going to do a video, hopefully on each. And so you will still see Craig on the bandsaws, and all of us guys use that prep room as well. So we've got lots of experience using that big machinery. We're just kind of divvying out what the different kind of jobs that we do, and who it's going to apply to. But yeah, keep your eye out and keep watching. We've got loads more content on bandsaws, planer thicknessers, all that kind of the table saws, all that big machinery. We all use that stuff. So we won't miss out. And Craig's producing some really good content on things like the dovetail jig, and works with Steph to make lots of set up videos and things like that. So keep your eye out and look at those product videos. They're usually attached to the website page. All right.
And if there's anything specific for bandsaws that you want to see, then send your ideas to woodworkingwisdom@axminstertools.com. Put it into the schedule somehow.
Good job, Steph.
Okay, we've got another one from Jason Addis. I have an Axminster hobbyist scroll saw, going back a few brands here. It takes blades with pins, and I do have some clamps that fix to the blades, but is there a kit or modification to mount clamps to the saw?
So with that one, you need 2 little adapter blocks, and they go top and bottom on the blade. They can be a little bit tricky to get in under the machine here because you've got actually a kind of cowling or plate on the side there, which helps with extraction. So it can be a little bit tricky to kind of drop it down through the extraction plate on top here and hook that bottom one on. Whilst you're bringing this in, you need that upwards pressure to kind of hold it on. But if you imagine, we're trying to thread through little holes, through something like this, that can be a little bit of a problem because the blocks don't fit through these little holes that we've drilled. One thing you can do is get that bottom block on first, thread your project up through and use something like a clothes peg or one of our little mini, a little kind of crocodile clip type clamps. So something like one of these. So let's just pop that on here. Oops. So something like that. You know, a nice small clamp that's just going to grab the blade above the project. So if you've got your blade kind of coming up through here, you can grab it with something like that, and then put that top block on and get it gripped onto the actual machine. So it is a bit fiddly, I'm afraid, but you know, perseverance and patience will be your best friend on that one. Okay.
Yeah, we've got one more question from Cliff here. He said, do you happen to know what the font is and size in the template to have different wording?
I don't, I'm afraid. We've got this this template is downloadable, but yeah, I don't know what the font is, because some of these might be, you know, you might want to put granddad or you know, whatever it is for, or you know, father or whatever it is. But no, this is just a downloadable one. But search Google Images. There might be one on there that you can just print straight off the screen. Okay, so we're back on our bench here. What do we want to do? We want to drill a couple of holes so we can hang this. And again, we'll do that whilst we've got this, you know, kind of integral strength of the material here. So doesn't matter too much. I'm going to go in this little bit of the S here and then up in the top of the D. So haven't quite made it through. That's good. And then one nice and central here. And what we'll do is we'll countersink those as well. So we've got a little kind of snail type countersink, really nice, useful little tool. I'm not grabbing it like I did the drill bit, because it has a really sharp little cutter on there. So we're just countersinking those in case you wanted to put some screws in. They'll sit nice and flush to the project now, so the head's not kind of sticking up. And also it looks nice and neat if you're you know, wanting to put a little string through there. It just gives it that kind of nice neat look. So we've drilled a couple of holes and then just countersunk them. It looks a bit scruffy at the moment because it's torn the paper, but that will look really neat once we get rid of our transfer. So we've got the easy bit now. We're going around the outside of our project. We're all good for questions there, Steph?
Yeah, we're good for now.
Good stuff. So, got 5 minutes to get around this this project. Let's see if we can do it. But not so many crazy changes in direction on this one. Again, I am going to backtrack up there. And just leave that if you want that really nice definition at the end. So increasing my feed rate now that we've got you know, a nice long line to come along. I put a bit of sideways pressure on here and twist the project, and that should stop you from kind of overshooting too much. Again, a little bit of sideways pressure, bring the project round. Never behaves when you want it to, does it? Again, down into that corner, back up, and we'll just do a little cut here to remove that little pit.
Just going straight around the top of our little spanner. And just really following these lines around. We are going to cut that shape in a moment. But for now, we're just cutting around our little shape. And of course, you know, you could do some of this on a bandsaw. You could cut out the external shape here. It's those little apertures in between, but you could remove that with a coping saw. If you wanted to kind of make this a bit bigger, you could use a bandsaw and a coping saw or a fret saw to remove those internal bits. The scroll saw just makes this job really easy. So again, I'm happy to increase my feed rate now that we've got a bit more of a straight run of things. We're almost coming to the limits. So if we go back on the main camera here, we're almost coming to the limits of how long a board we can fit in here with this gap at the back. But you know, we've got an extra couple of inches if we needed to go a little bit bigger. And of course, this sign doesn't quite take up the whole board. So if you have got a smaller saw, you could always trim that end piece off. So just cut the into that S to give us the shape of that hammer, and then just backing off. And I think what I'm going to do, this part here, I'm not sure if you can see it, but it's flexing and it's catching on the table. So I'm just going to reverse back a little bit, switch my direction, and come out of that cut. And we can now remove our project in the middle. Okay, so we're just going to start back around this way. Yeah, if you're interested in the bandsaw, I think me and Jason are going to do some kind of log conversion. So taking, log material, which is quite difficult to do anything with, and converting it into plank, ready for drying or whatever project you've got in mind. So we've got some really big lumps out the back. I think it's cherry, a nice big cherry log. And I think we're going to be looking at that fairly soon. Jason's really good at building jigs and things. so we can have a look at the bandsaw then. And there's loads of machinery in there we want to get our hands on. So just trimming out all the little bits now. We're nearly there. I've run over time, so just bear with us a little bit longer. We're not too far off. What we've got to do is take this bit out and a couple of bits on the spanners and then a couple of these corners that we've left behind. So let's go here first. Get rid of that little bulky bit. Good. So again, rest on the side of the blade so we can pick up on that cut. Into the corner. Resting on the side. Bringing the project around, rotating it onto those teeth. And I tend to go along one side. Keep an eye out for any little straggly bits on the way around. We've got a zigzag to cut here. Just caught on one of those bits in the extraction plate there. Let's get rid of that. Turn the machine off if you're fishing around in there. And I think I'm going to turn the machine off as I backtrack through here. We don't want those teeth kind of affecting the finish on the way out. And just a couple of extra little bits. That one. And I think we're there. Oh no, a little bit in the spanner up here. Now this is only joined up by this section here at the moment. So I'm using a little bit of downwards pressure on top of this spanner shape to make sure it doesn't kind of pin off. Good. Need to be still this in here. Now we haven't really got the option to have another cut from an intersect with that one, so just going around it as best we can with a quick change of direction. Good. Oops. So just grabbed at the end there. But let's come back onto the bench. There's our little scroll sword sign. All of this comes off. and you get that lovely kind of wooden look. So like I say, this is a piece of poplar or tulip, sometimes called. This is a little bit darker than the norm. Sometimes the tree will get attacked by kind of insects or grubs, and they can create some really interesting colors as the tree tries to heal itself. So you can get purples and pinks and blacks running through this. They sometimes, you know, if you've got that coloring on it, sometimes it'll be called a rainbow tulip. This has got a nice kind of dark brown look to it. But yeah, just carry on like that. Remove all of this template. You can see that glue's doing its thing, keeping everything as a nice layer. It's not sunk into the wood at all, so this will take a finish. I like to use the Osmo oil, so the UV protection oil. This is going to give it a little bit of protection from the sun, stop it from bleaching and weathering too bad. Okay, that's about it for today. All right.
I've got a question.
Oh, I've got a question. I'll keep removing my template then while we're there.
Very good.
Good stuff.
So, so this is Ben the Pen question.
Oh, okay.
So slightly returning, but for you. Martin's asked here, can you tell me the size of the bushes for the keyring kits you sell? Had a look on the website and it said the same as a slimline, but I made 2 yesterday and the fittings are slightly larger.
Yeah, I thought the keyring ones were slightly bigger. I can't tell you them off the top of my head. Again, I'd have to get the calipers out. We have probably got a set over there. But Martin, could you pop that in on our Woodworking Wisdom email, and I'll measure those after we're done here, and I'll pop that back to you in email form. Yeah, it might take a little while to dig those out from our little pot of bushings. But yeah, I think they're a bit bigger than the 7, you know, the kind of pens that accept the 7mm tubes or the slimline type pens. I think they've got their own bushing set, but worth having a look. So there's our little shed, our Father's Day shed sign. Again, really nice and neat, good finish off of that blade. Not too much cleanup. What I tend to do, if we are putting a bit of oil on, you want to put the oil on with a brush. Make sure you get into all of these little voids. Some of these little tiddly ones are a bit of a pain to get into, but just drive the brush hairs down through there, and then give it a few minutes and just wipe off the excess so it's not kind of pooling or going sticky on your project. Yeah, and that's about it really. You could color this, you could add spirit stains, you know, take it whichever way you want. But that's about it for today. Well, thanks again for joining us on another Woodworking Wisdom. Back tomorrow with Jason. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying all this free content. We'll see you again soon. Thanks again.